Okay, so there's two ways to do this kind of category research. So when you're, if you're trying to find more categories to list your book in and categories that are more favorable to list your book in, how do we know which ones, like, how do we do that? How do we determine which ones are good to use? So you can see here in this department, what I did is I went just on Amazon, on the search bar at the top, you can change it to just pull up books and just do a search. And then on the side, it's going to list all the different types of books, all the categories of books.
Right.
So I picked business and money, and then it showed the subcategories, which were accounting was one of them. And then these are the subcategories. And so, I picked bookkeeping. So, now it's pulled up all these top listing of bookkeeping books. So, this is just showing you like the different levels, and that there's, category and a subcategory and sub and sub and sub. And you want to go down as much as you can. It's 4 levels is as far as it'll go down there. There's sometimes 5 and 6 levels that just aren't being shown. Looking for those kind of books, categories are going to help you out. So this book, like same book that we were looking at before, number 1 in 3 different categories. So that's this book right here, Profit First. So I just clicked on it, went to the page description, scrolled down to the product information, and I see it's number 1 in these 3. So what does it take to be a number 1 in these 3? How many books do I have to be selling? So you're going to look for this, the best sellers rank. So this case overall, this is overall all the 50 million books in Amazon. This is the 1,253 bestseller overall. So you need this overall number and just copy and paste that. And then you're going to do a search for KDP sales rank calculator. And there's a few of them out there. This one on Kindlepreneur is probably the best. And you just plop that number in here and you click here, and it will tell you how many books per day that book is selling. So 61. So if you wanted to be number 1 in any of these 3 categories, you have to be selling at least 62 books. Right? So that's a lot. But even if you can get into the top 10, that's really, really useful. So if you go into any kind of category and just break it down, look for the different books, and you can just click on them. And let me switch over to that. So let me stop sharing and just go through this with you so you can see it in action. So this is the free way to do it. So I'm showing you the free way, and then I'm going to show you the way the professionals do it. But if you're trying to keep your costs low, this is how you can do it. So books, just do a search. And if you go here, you will see here's all this categories for different types of books. So let's say we're looking for, religious books. So here's all the subcategories now for religious books. So we're going to do Christian books. And so you see on the side here now, we now have the subcategories for Christian books. And Christian living is a subcategory. And even under Christian living, there are more categories here. So you can just keep going down as much as possible. Really competitive, but I think all of these are going to be competitive. Let's do business. Okay, so this is as far down as we can go. And here's, the top 3. Let's see more. So I looked at the number 1 in that other category. Let me go down to the number 10 book and click on this. And I don't know why it shows it to you in the middle here. This is kind of a useless step that they put in. So just scroll down. What are the categories? So here it is, Christian business and professional gross. Number 10. And you can see these other categories, it's much, much lower. Because they're, much more competition in those categories. But this one, it's a number 10, so it's not that bad. So again, we're going to get its bestseller rank overall. And there you go. Yeah, we're going to go to this calculator. I'm going to put in that rank here. I didn't copy. All right. And type it in, and it's 15. So now I know if I want to hit bestseller, I only need to sell more than 15 copies in a day. That's an achievable goal. And the way that people do it using this tactic is that they'll have their launch team, and we talked about launch teams in the previous training, or they will drop the book price down to 99 cents for the day for their ebook, or they will run a whole bunch of ads on sites like Gorilla Books and Pixels of Ink and stuff like that. And I'll do a training on all of those sites where you can advertise your books separately. So they do some combination of this so that they're driving a lot of traffic to buy this book in this one day. And, doing that, they know I'm definitely going to get more than 15 books sold in that day. That is going to make me the number one book in that category, at least for that day. And that's all they need to just, again, they screenshot it with the badge, number one. And then they use that to promote themselves as a best-selling author and a best-selling book. This is a somewhat artificial way of having a best-selling book, but all of these places, if you see on Facebook and stuff, have a best-selling book, this is what they're doing, right? They're just teaching this tactic to find remote categories and drive a whole bunch of sales and hit that at least for one day or even 1 hour of the day, because that does change hourly, so that you can say, you got a best-selling book. And if you can't find a category or it's really hard, you can, use a launch team and get everybody to buy it in the same hour. So you concentrate all those sales into 1 hour and just get the tag very temporarily. Or if you know people in another market, like say Canada or Australia or such, it is much easier to hit the best-selling market in those countries than it is in the US. So if this book is 15 per day to hit number one in the US, you probably only need 3. So you sell 4 books in Canada, you're the number one best-selling author in this category in Canada, but that's not a detail that you really have to share. You can still claim you have a number one selling book. So that is the best-selling book tactic as it's being taught by a lot of people nowadays. And of course, the detriment to this is it's really belittling what it means to be a best-selling author.
Yes, very much.
It's also, because it's being taught so widely now, all the categories are filling up. My book, I use this tactic myself. I find what are the most relevant categories that, we can put our book in. And my book for several weeks was number one on and off in that category, just based on organic sales. But now it's like barely making the top 10 in that category because all these other authors have jumped in and put their books in that category. Right. And I think Dee mentioned in another session that you're often going into a category and there's books that have little or nothing at all to do with this category. Like they should not be in this group category at all. And some author who doesn't have a lot of scruples has just dumped it in that category so they could hit number one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's there. And fortunately, Amazon is doing nothing to police this right now. They don't do any kind of checks to see if your book should be in this category or not. They really leave that up to the author to determine. So that may change. That very well may change at some point. But you know, so as of right now, as I'm recording this, there's nothing stopping you from utilizing this technique to make your book a #1 bestseller. We show you the other way to do it. And that is by using Publisher Rocket, and this makes it a lot easier. So in Publisher Rocket, we looked at this earlier when we were talking about finding key search words. You can also use it for categories, and you know, very easily you can just pull up, scroll and find all the sub categories in here. So let's do the same thing. Let's go back into religion, right? So boom, it just gives you the full list right here. So you can just go scrolling through it. And what it's also showing you here is the number of sales it takes to get to #1 and the number of sales it takes to get to #10. So, you know, if you can be somewhere in between this, you're in good company. And, you know, we can see, and this is the good one, because on Amazon, you're probably only going to get as far as Bible study, but there's categories to that, including prophets. So if you talk about the prophets, you could categorize your book in this category, subcategory, and you only need to sell 2 books in a single day to get into the top 10, right? Pretty sweet. So, you know, it'd be very easy to be in the top 10, or even with 1 book, you could possibly get in the top 10. So that's pretty sweet. That's a pretty easy category to be in. This one, Christian biographies, is slightly easier. 1 to get in the top 10, 11 to get into the #1 ranking. And you can see, you can just, you know, scroll through and you're just looking for categories that are relevant to you, you know, appropriately describe what's in your book. But, you know, do not have a high bar to rank well in these categories.